my whole life since I was a little kid was to play pro baseball. I mean, I wanted to be in the big leagues. First game of 2015, I got one play on kickoff cover, and I'm 100% make a tackle on kickoff cover. We had said earlier in the game, kind of the way the game was shaking out, like early in the fourth quarter, that Justin was just like, you just be ready for us to have to win this game here in a little bit, and turns out we did.
Welcome into the lounge presented by DraftKings. Another big week. The Ravens are riding a winning streak, Garrett. It's streak 2 in a row. That's a streak.
I thought it was, the movie Major League?
Yeah.
I thought he had to get to 3. I thought he said 3. If you
no.
It
That
just said
the joke. That was the joke. After they won the
second game.
Said, that's what we call a streak. The Ravens sit at 2-1, tied with everybody else in the AFC North. No, that's not true.
Yeah, they're tied with the Browns and the Bengals. The Steelers are 1-2.
That's right. The Steelers are 1-2. And going into a game against the undefeated Denver Broncos, who sit at 3-0, played three of not the highest caliber teams.
Yeah, they played 3 winless teams.
3 winless teams.
However, you play who's on your schedule. They're part of the reason those teams are winless.
That's what I was just about to say. So it should be a good game, honestly, out in Denver. Their offense is playing pretty well with Teddy Bridgewater, and they have a good defense. Vic Fangio is former defense coordinator, was a coach here in Baltimore for a little while, and he's doing a good job out there. So should be a really good game. As usual, I already went down my list on the schedule. Nothing's changed, dubs. So, but before we get to that,
we got to relive the past a little bit here.
Exactly.
This is one of those, of course, do you turn the page? Sure, of course, everyone wants to turn the page. But you savor a win like that for a while.
The one in Detroit, you're saying.
You savor a win in Detroit. Exactly. I'll tell you what, Justin Tucker ran out to practice today. He had one of those tinted visors. You don't see that very often.
For the kicker.
You don't see that very often for the kicker. So
the lights are too bright for him right now.
Yeah, exactly.
The star.
Yep.
He probably got put up to that. I would guess. Somebody was like, "You got to wear the tinted visor."
Yeah.
I mean, obviously epic, as we talked about. Still kind of buzzing from that one. But one of the guys, the other star of that whole operation, that really hasn't got enough love. We could have had Tucker on the podcast. We could have had him.
We've had Tucker on a few times.
We've had him on a few times. He's getting a lot of interviews right now. He's getting a lot of buzz.
Yeah.
Could have had Sam on. Sam's great. We've had him on before.
Yeah.
But there's one part of that operation who we haven't talked to, who doesn't get the love, and that is long snapper Nick Moore.
And Nick has an incredible story. He threw back a perfect snap, and as Justin said after the game, Nick throws back a perfect snap. Sam throws down a perfect hold. Ball kicks itself. As we all know.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. A 66-yarder just kicks itself. It really started with Nick Moore. So that's why we brought him in here to talk to him. Let's jump into that. Well, Nick, thanks for joining us. So we all know that Justin Tucker's the GOAT, right?
It's true.
We all know that 4th and 19, Lamar to Sammy. I mean, that was an epic play, right? Yeah. But are we all overlooking the true hero here? Because that kick never happens without the snap, right?
This is true. Yeah, but I'm no hero there. Just doing my job.
It all has to start with you, buddy. Yeah. Don't take anything away. Don't be too modest.
It's in the grand scheme of it, it's easier than what Justin and Sam have to do. So I'm just doing the best I can for them, trying to make their job as easy as possible, and fortunately it worked out for us.
That's cool.
How cool was it, though? I mean, Justin, afterwards in a bunch of interviews, and, part of it he's being funny, but it's like it's your first game-winning snap. Yeah, I mean, that's a big moment for you.
Yeah, I'm only 4 games into my career, so obviously that was a huge moment for me individually and us as a team, and obviously Justin with it being an NFL record kick, but yeah, I mean, it was something else. That's for sure. It was definitely a crazy experience.
We were talking just before we started here. The thing that's crazy about it to me is that how quickly it happens and how you guys need to get ready. Oftentimes for fans, they don't necessarily see this, but you and Sam are often kind of going through your routine on the sidelines to get prepped. But everyone's kind of sitting there thinking it's 4th and 19. Yeah. You're on the wrong side of the field. There's only, 30 seconds left. Everyone's kind of thinking this is probably not going to happen. I don't know if you're thinking that. I'll be honest, I was thinking that.
It was definitely, the odds are stacked against you in 4th and 19, and you're on your own 30-ish yard line. I mean, we know we got to get at least a 20 or 30-yard gain for us to be even close to field goal range, which obviously we were on the edge of it after the completion. But I mean, Sam does a good job of keeping us all in check on the sidelines and making sure that we're always ready to go. And when we got the first down, I mean, I don't know if we were expecting it or not expecting it, but we were ready to go. We knew we had said earlier in the game, kind of the way the game was shaking out, like early in the fourth quarter, that Justin was just like, you just be ready for us to have to win this game here in a little bit. And turns out we did.
That's awesome. Do you even have time to get nervous?
No, not really. I mean, that's particular scenario. We just, like, you're sitting there, it's 3rd and 12, you know, your quarterback gets sacked for a 6 or 7 yard loss, and you're like, man, you know, now it's 4th and 19. Like, probability is lower than 1%. You know,
right.
We're looking at less than 0.1% that we're going to be able to get close enough to kick a field goal. But at the same time, we're always ready to rock on the sidelines. We're snapping the whole entire time the offense is out there. And then going into it, we're just do what we do every day on the practice field, and it works out.
You talk about Sam kind of keeping you locked in.
Yeah.
What does he say? How does he do that?
Sam has been in the NFL for a long time, as most everybody around the NFL knows. He's a hard-working guy, man. He just keeps his head down. He works all the time.
Right. He's like all business. I feel like on the sideline, like anywhere in practice.
Yeah, I'm getting into crack up a little bit more this year. I'm much more laid back. I like to. He kind of said something with about 3 minutes to go in the game. We were sitting on the bench. Our defense was out there, and I was talking a lot. And I was like, my knees, like I was kind of like bouncing my knees a little bit, and he just looks at me. He's like, dude, you got to calm down. He's like, I'm like, I don't feel nervous. Like, I'm excited. Like, I get an opportunity to potentially win the game for the team. Like, you know, I was excited for it. It was my first chance. And, you know, Sam was like, dude, you're freaking me out here. You gotta calm down a little bit. Otherwise I'm going to get nervous. And,
you're just a knee bouncer. Yeah. I'm kind of the same way.
I do. Like, I'm like
tick kind of thing.
I was like, dude, you don't, like, we sit next to each other in the team meeting. I'm like, you got to know that I'm just always bouncing my knee. But he was like, well, I do. But when you start talking a lot, I know you're getting kind of nervous. And I'm like, well, you're not wrong there. I definitely was. But it was like excited. Like, I wasn't scared that I was going to not do well. It was like, I'm finally going to get a chance to, like, go out there in a huge moment. You know, I watched a lot of these moments last year with the game winner against Cleveland and other kicks like that. Like, for me to finally get an opportunity to go out there in a huge moment like that and be able to kind of show everybody what I've been working on for the last 5 years or however long I've been doing this long snapping biz. But, right. it was awesome. Like, it was a great experience. Probably the best experience I've had ever in sports, and that's saying something.
That's cool. No. And you got a game ball. Harv's gave a game ball to each of the 3 specialists. Yeah. What do you do with that one?
That one's going to get put in a case and hung up on the shelf in my house. It was my first ever game ball. It's a big deal because I don't want to say we don't get the recognition we need. Obviously we do with Justin and Sam, but we're just kind of expected to do our job in a situation like that, or any time in the game we go out on the field, like, we're expecting to get points, whether it's a field goal or an extra point. So, I mean, it's kind of a huge honor to get kind of put out in front of the team. Usually we were clapping for all the other guys that are getting the cheers and all that stuff, but it's cool to be the guys who get kind of cheered on by the whole team and picked up in the locker room. So it's pretty neat.
That is neat.
So you know how it is in the NFL. You know, you do something great, and then automatically people like us try to turn the page. Yeah. So you've had the record now. Justin's had the record for a couple of days. Yeah. Now you're going to Denver, thin air. So can you break it this week? Boom! Come on now.
If we get an opportunity we're going to try. I know Justin. He's been looking forward to this game since they put it on the calendar. We didn't expect to kick a record NFL kick last week. Yeah. But given an opportunity, I mean, he does it every day. We see it all the time in practice. I mean, we hit 65-yard field goals in practice, and he hit 70-yarders off the sticks. Doesn't make them all, but he makes enough to be like, man, this guy can definitely make it from that far back. So
interesting.
If we get an opportunity to, it's a lot of the times, you get in a situation like that where it's 4th and medium to short and you're in midfield, we're going to go for it. We got Lamar Jackson. So we don't get a lot of those opportunities unless it's end-of-game, end-of-half situation.
Right.
Just because of our offense is so good. I mean, Lamar is Lamar, so he can get a first down on just about anything.
Right.
So coach likes to go for it in those situations when it's kind of on the cusp.
So what you said, Justin's talked about this game. What's he said?
He's just excited. I mean, everybody knows the ball goes farther in Colorado. I mean, look at the baseball. You can look at Coors Field. The ball flies like crazy out there. Home run derby was out there. It was like a freaking home run fest out there. But, I mean, you just watch. You know the ball goes further out there. Everybody does. So as a player, especially as a kicker, you think, how is it possible to break a 64-yard record? I mean, Mile High Stadium is the place to break it.
Right.
I mean, that's
that's
the ideal spot. Yeah.
Matt Prater set the 64-yarder in. Now, that was late in the year, though, which makes it a little harder. That ball is a little harder, but still.
Definitely harder to kick in the winter, but it definitely makes it – it's the more ideal spot in Denver. But we'll take it in Detroit, man. That was inside, the perfect conditions. It was awesome.
One more question on that.
Yeah.
Did you know did you guys know, if I would have asked you Sunday morning, what's the record for the longest field goal in NFL?
Yeah, we would have known 64. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we keep up with that.
That's been mentioned a few times.
Yeah, our guy has the leg to do it, so that's definitely something on the radar. We always talk about the distance, the range we need for a field goal, for situations like that, end of half type stuff. How close do we have to get for us to make a field goal?
Yeah.
And anything on the plus side of the field is what Justin always says, and that's where we were.
Wow.
Plus 48, so that works.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
Wow, that is wild.
Yeah.
Did after the 61-yarder in Detroit 8 years ago, was there any kind of feeling from him? Did he say anything about this is kind of a special place for me? Was he kind of feeling it?
He talked about it after the game. I know he had said he was going to buy a house in Detroit. But I mean, he may have been thinking about it. He didn't vocalize anything to us. Obviously, Sam was there for that kick. So I was in 2013. Football wasn't even on the radar for me. So I had no idea until we were there after the game. We were talking about it.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, he's the best kicker in the league, and he wants to kick the biggest, longest field goals he can all the time. And fortunately, he got an opportunity to do something pretty special.
What were your nerves like when you go out there for that snap?
I was thinking in my head, when I thought about when I would get a game winner, because we do simulated stuff in practice, end of game, we're down by 1 in the Super Bowl, stuff like that, just to kind of build up your nerves a little bit. But it's never quite the same when you go out there. But I expected myself to be nervous, and I don't know if I was or wasn't, but it wasn't it wasn't bad. I was more so excited, kind of what I said earlier, just for me to finally get an opportunity. And I have so much faith in our guy, Sam and Justin, that as long as I do my job exactly how I'm supposed to do it, then they're going to do theirs. And, we're going to have events like that where we make a 66-yard game winner. And it's kind of what we expect, They have expectations for me. It's really high because of my predecessor. And so I'm just trying to do the best I can, do my job every single time that we go out there, try to make it as easy as I can for them. And fortunately, Sam said I actually did good on that one, so that's good to hear.
Well, natural segue there. We do want to kind of share some of your backstory. It's an interesting backstory, and you have moved into this role where you're replacing Morgan Cox, who had been entrenched here for so long. If you Google Ravens long snapper right now, Morgan's picture still comes up.
He's still there.
Yep, exactly.
It doesn't help.
Last night.
It doesn't help. I took his. I asked him if I could be number 46. So some people still think it's Morgan out there.
I'm sure.
I get the. Actually, the Chiefs head coach. I think he mistakenly called me Morgan. Or not the head coach, the special teams coach. I think he was just kind of in the moment. Just instinctually went with Morgan because he was here for 11 seasons, so it's easy to make that mistake. And I'm a little bit bigger than Morgan was as far as size. He was taller than me a little bit, but same number, same bodies. We walk similar.
Right. So did you just roll with it, or did you crack?
Yeah, I just roll. I said, "Hey, nice to see you, coach." Just kept on going down the side. Kept on going down to snap. But it's definitely. It's definitely huge shoes to fill. As far as long snapping goes, I think that's as big as you can make it. Morgan, in my opinion, is the best long snapper to ever play the game. He's obviously still playing, but he's a dear friend of mine, and he's helped me out tremendously. He texted me right after the game, called me, talked to all three of us.
Cool.
He's been a huge part of kind of why I'm able to do things like that. Kind of have the faith because I've been able to work with a guy like that for so long, and kind of have him in my corner all the time. So he's a stand-up guy, and he'll always be someone special to me.
Was that significant? I mean, I could see in a lot of situations that, you replaced him and the Ravens made the decision to move on from him this offseason because they had confidence in you. That I could see that there would be situations where that relationship's not particularly rosy, right?
Yeah, Morg is, it's always difficult when things like that happen. But, Morgan is such a class act individual. He's such a great guy and a true, genuine person. He's dealt with a lot of stuff in his career. He's had competition every year he was here. So he wasn't new to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't have asked for a guy to handle something like that better. It's kind of a whirlwind because usually when you're in a position like we do where we play long snapper, it's not if you're good, there's not a lot of turnover.
Yeah.
You get guys like Don Mulbach who play 17 years in the same place, and there's no real need to turn over if you're doing well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Here it's different. Coach Harbaugh's he's a special teams coordinator by trade. So he's very involved in special teams, and he's very good when it comes to – he's got a lot of knowledge. He's a very knowledgeable coach when it comes to special teams. And so we kind of pay attention to some stuff that other teams might overlook just because of our head coach. And we have a very high standard here, and they made the decision that they made because they were looking towards the future, I guess. I think Morgan can play for a long time. He's still proven right now that he's the best player at our position. So, it's tough. He's excited for me because I get my opportunity. I think he's happy now. He's back home in Tennessee.
Yep.
Gets to be home. He just had his third baby recently, so he's close to the family. Hopefully he'll finish his career there. He deserves everything that he gets. He's a great player and a great man. So I'm excited. I'm happy for him, and I'm just glad he is the way he is because it would have been a much more difficult thing, especially last year, me being here the whole year.
Right.
A lot of guys wouldn't have handled that as well as he did and been even kind of positive towards me.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Morgan was like a really dear friend. He was a great friend. We still talk every day. We still watch film of each other all the time. We play video games together at night. Like he's just an all-around great guy, and I couldn't have asked for a better mentor and a guy to learn from and to be around for a year.
Right, because a lot of times, not many teams even carry an extra long snapper in training camp or in the summer.
Most teams don't. Yeah.
Most teams don't. Only a handful do. And then once they keep you on the practice squad beyond that, then you're like, wait a second.
Yeah, that hardly ever happens. I think with the expanded COVID roster last year and this year, I think it allowed the Ravens to do something like that, kind of like a redshirt-ish type year.
Right.
Obviously, I did a lot more last year than long snap. I was doing all kinds of scout team work. Just trying to earn my paycheck every week, as I said.
You doing scout team linebacker?
I was doing tight end and fullback, yeah.
Okay.
So I was doing a little bit of everything, played a lot of different positions, helped the team out any way I could in practice. So it's definitely different. That doesn't happen every day. You're lucky if you get 5 to 7 teams that have an extra long snapper in training camp. And it's almost impossible to be a long snapper extra on the roster.
Right.
Just because it's most of us, I don't want to knock everyone, but a lot of us aren't the best athletes. I don't know if you guys know that or not. But, so it's really hard.
You said it, not us.
It's really hard to fill a role on the practice squad
Right.
because, most of us can't do other stuff. Fortunately, I played fullback at Georgia for 3 years. Did a lot of scout team work there. So I had a lot of experience with doing that kind of stuff. So that definitely played a role. And obviously they had bigger plans for me that I didn't know about. So that's kind of why they kept me around.
One question that we hear a lot is it still the Wolfpack?
It is the Wolfpack. It's Wolfpack 2.0.
It's Wolfpack 2.0. That's what you guys call it?
Yeah, I'll never be Morgan Cox. He was a once in a lifetime guy, but I'm just out here doing my best. He kind of set the standard for me and any long snapper that comes beyond that. This is how we do it, and I'm just doing the best I can to make sure it's exactly the same. So there's no steps backwards from him, transitioning from him. So
so opposing coaches still call you more than that.
yeah,
That's the goal.
Yeah, exactly. If I do my job well, it's not necessarily an insult if they're calling me Morgan Cox. I definitely enjoy it.
So you bring up your backstory, which is really incredible, just how you got to this path, and we want to kind of review that for listeners out there.
Yeah.
So 2011, you were actually drafted in the Major League Baseball draft,
Yes, sir.
30th round out of high school in the Boston Red Sox system. And you played 4 seasons of minor league baseball, mostly for the
Lowell Spinners.
The Lowell Spinners. I mean, baseball was your first love.
Yeah.
Like, you thought that
Baseball was always my first. It was always my love in sports. The game. I don't know. Something about the game was always just so intriguing to me. Loved the game forever. I mean, I was always, I was always pretty good at it growing up and stuff. And both my brothers played it, and I started playing it when I was 3. My older brother was 5. I started playing with him, and I started out doing cartwheels in the outfield and climbing the fence to see my mom. But as I grew older, I got a little bit better at it, and obviously, fortunately, had an opportunity to pursue it professionally. Didn't quite work out the way I wanted it to, but wouldn't change it for the world. It was a great experience for me. Learned a lot about myself. Learned a lot about a lot of different stuff about life. Got to meet people from all over the world. Lived with people from Taiwan, Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Mexico. Had some lifelong friends, and did some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, so, that's cool.
Yeah, it was definitely a great experience for me. I don't know if I would be where I'm at today if I didn't go through the struggles I went through there.
And you delayed college. You came out of high school and went straight into
Yeah, I was out of high school. I had signed to play baseball at Kennesaw State University. It's a big-time baseball school right outside of Atlanta. And there was never a doubt. I mean, I was a good student. Both my parents are teachers. Made good grades because I pretty much had to. But school was never something I was interested in. My whole life since I was a little kid was to play pro baseball. I mean, I wanted to be in the big leagues. I wanted to be like Barry Bonds, King Griffey Jr., those guys when I was growing up. So that was kind of the only option. And when I got the call that I got drafted, I mean, it was later than I wanted it to be. I thought it was going to go a lot earlier than that, but it just is what it is. And there was like a minor hesitation.
You're like, yes.
Yeah. I signed in July. So
you go down the baseball path for how many years?
I got drafted in 2011 and got cut in 2015. So right at 4 years.
So how did you decide then when baseball's done that you say, okay, I'm not going to pursue that or try to, it's done basically. And then you want to try to go the football route. Talk to us about that. Yeah.
Usually it's a very difficult decision because you spend your whole life like this is a dream. You're willing to do anything you can for it. For me, it wasn't that hard of a decision. I got cut, and I kind of expected it. I mean, backstory, I lived with Mookie Betts. I got drafted with Mookie. I lived with him and Jackie Bradley. Yeah, so I lived with – so Mookie and I are still really good buddies. We don't talk as much as we used to. Obviously, he's Mookie Betts. I've had a different route the last six or 7 years.
He's never thrown back a game-winning snap.
This is true.
I'll tell you that much.
This is true. He's won a couple World Series and made a couple $100 million.
He's done a few things.
Yeah, just a few. But so I lived with him. I was fortunate enough to live with, be really good friends with him and spend a lot of time over 4 years with him and guys like Jackie Bradley and Travis Shaw and these guys that are like prolific big league players. Yeah. These are high profile guys. And being around them all the time, and like I played with Mookie in 2011, 2012, and half of 2013. And then that was when I was struggling a lot and he wasn't. Obviously. And we in the early 2013 in April, we were both struggling. I was actually doing better than him. I was hitting like 150. He was hitting like 130. The difference was I was hitting 150 with like 50% strikeout rate, and he was hitting 130 with like hard hit line drives to the outfield that they're just making the plays. At some point, those are going to fall for hits. The strikeouts aren't going to be hits. So he was hitting a good 130. I was hitting a bad 150. But and I'll never forget, we were in Charleston, West Virginia. We were playing the West Virginia Power, and Mook had never hit a home run in his professional career up to that point. And we were sitting in the dugout, and we were both just having a day. I mean, we were both just doing terrible. And he like kind of shrugs, and Mook was always so negative to himself. Like it was weird because he was so good, but he'd always be like, "Man, I suck. Like I'm not doing good. I just suck right now." And we were sitting in the dugout, and I was just like, he kind of did his shrug, and I knew he was about to say like, "I suck," and I was like, "Don't even say it, bro. Like I suck. You're good." Okay. And,
this is an insult to me.
Yeah.
You're hurting my feelings.
He was like, "You're right, dude. I'm done screwing around. Like that's it." And I have never seen him in a slump since that day.
Wow.
He hit a home run that later on in the game and proceeded to freaking tear his way to the big leagues in a year and a half, or not even really.
I'm pretty sure he owes you some money.
Dude, Mook's a great guy.
Talk. Your pep talk, man.
Mook's a great guy. I mean, I love the kid. He's a phenomenal athlete. I think he's the best baseball player. That's up for debate, but I'm biased probably. But he deserves everything he got. I mean, I would love to have a $400 million contract as
Who
well.
wouldn't?
Yeah.
Who wouldn't?
But
I'm with you.
That's a special player. It's a special man, and he deserves it, so I'm happy for him.
So basically what you're saying with this story is like at the end of your baseball career, you were like, I know I'm not Mookie Betts. I'm done with that.
I had that. Done. That's where I was trying to go.
I got you. I
got honestly, when I got cut, it was almost like a relief because I was like, one of my good friends that Mookie and I had lived with, his name was Kendrick Perkins. He had gotten cut the week before, and we were all living together. And Perk got cut the week before, so that was like a weird deal. And the whole week was he like stayed with us for basically the whole week. After that, he was still living at the house with us, and it was just a weird time. And they always did this thing where we had our complex, we would walk down this really long pathway in between like our building, because they had the big league stuff in the front of the building, and then the minor league stuff was at the back end. Mm-hmm. So we had this long building, probably 200 or 300 yards long, and then so it's building on the left, and like the fields and the batting cages are on the right. So you're like walking down this path, and right before you get to the main entrance to the minor league section, there's our weight room. It's kind of in the middle. It joins the big league and the minor league. And they would always put, I don't know exactly how their thought process was on it, but it always seemed to me like they put the coach that was most impactful on you as a player and as a person to like, he was the guy to tell you like, hey, we need to talk to you.
Right.
So I knew if I got cut that Joe Oliver was going to be the guy waiting on me. And sure enough, I come in. It was the last day of cuts, right before spring training broke for the season, and I see Joe standing in the weight room through the glass. I saw him, and we made eye contact, and it was like I wasn't even like I thought my whole life I would be like really sad, like God, my baseball dream is like coming to an end, and honestly, I wasn't. Like he hugged me, and he's like, Nick, we need to talk to you, and I honestly was like, thank you. Like it's about like
interesting.
It's I don't want to say it's about time, but I was so worried about it coming because I knew it was coming.
Right. Is this like
that
this
when it happened,
looming over your head?
So when it happened, it was just such a relief, and like I got nothing but praise from the coaching staff there, from all the people, the personnel in the minor leagues. I mean, I didn't cry until grown men were talking to me, my coaches and mentors and stuff, and they were tearing up. That was what hurt me because. Yeah. I mean, I love baseball. I miss the game a little bit, but it's mainly like the relationships I had. A lot of them I lost like right away. Yeah. You get cut and they're doing their thing. You're trying to figure out your life, and it's just you just stop talking to each other, and it just kind of segues. Your lives go apart. And fortunately, I kept a handful of those relationships to this day. I still have them. A couple of the guys are going to come, try to come to a game or whatever this year,
nice.
but it's definitely, it's definitely a difficult thing. So when that happened, I mean, I just called my dad and was like, hey, I got cut. I'll see you tonight. I'll drive back to Georgia and figure out the next trip.
Yeah. So when did you decide that you were going to go enroll, at Georgia and play football?
So kind of right away, honestly. I called my dad, and I don't know what he did on his back end, but I guess he called my high school football coach. I always knew that, I always jokingly said, oh, if baseball doesn't work out, I can play football.
Were you a really good football player in high school?
I definitely was. I had the statistics for sure. I had
you could have played in college if you wanted to.
Yeah,
go that
I had
route
some.
Right
I
away.
had some, but I played safety in high school, and that was not going to be my position in college. I was nowhere near fast enough to do that. I didn't have any major schools, but I had I got offered by Georgia State and Air Force and Georgia Southern and Furman and some smaller schools like that I could have played at. But again, at that time in my life, I signed baseball really early.
Right.
And the football stuff started coming later on because my senior year I had a pretty good year of football. My senior year, we won the state championship, so got a lot of exposure from that. And by the time I was getting these recruiting trips for football, I'd already signed my NIL NLI to Kennesaw. So there was not really much I could do. And like I said, baseball was always the goal.
Right.
It was always the dream.
And so how was it that Georgia, a big time program like Georgia, says, yeah, come on board, man? And you were going to play linebacker there, right?
Yeah. So I went. So after I got cut, I was driving home the same day, and I got a bunch of phone calls from all these different college coaches or recruiting people, personnel, stuff like that. And
I'm just confused. I'm just confused as to why they were calling you're a baseball player for 4 years. You said it's not like you had it's not like you were offered to Alabama, Georgia, Florida coming out of college, and then all of a sudden 4 years later, now they're
Georgia
it's super interested. I'm just curious.
I think it's one of those things anytime a team can get a 23-year-old freshman or 22-year-old freshman that is a former pro athlete I had a lot of good stats in football in high school. I was really talented. I had a lot of some of them were probably lucky, but I had a lot of accolades from Georgia. I was very highly touted defensive back there. I had a lot of I was first team All-State. I was defensive back of the state.
Oh wow!
I was defensive
Georgia. That's something, right?
I was defensive back of the Southeast back in 2010.
See, you sold yourself short here when you asked about your high school. You said, I played a little football in high school. By the way, I was the best teammate in the state.
I did get I got a lot of awards for stuff that wasn't necessarily my doing. Just had good guys around me, but I got I was on stage with guys like Jadeveon Clowney and Isaiah Crowell and Deshaun Watson and people like that that obviously are much better football players than I am. But back in the day, I was good for a high school. Yeah, I never could have played my position in college, but I definitely had some opportunities. But I think as I had some coaches call, my high school coaches call out, I guess, and try to sell it and stuff like that. And being a 22-year-old freshman that was going to be a scholarship from baseball because I had a scholarship fund through the Red Sox. So they can get an older guy who's experienced and they don't have to pay for him. It's a win-win for them. If I come in and do great, they look like geniuses. If I come in and suck, then, it's just a walk-on. They didn't pay for it.
Right.
So, I was kind of deciding between going to because I didn't want to go somewhere just for football. I was at that point in my life, I was going to school for school, and I was kind of tired of being away from my family and my friends and stuff like that. Because baseball, my parents probably saw me play less than 20 games, and I probably played 1,000 in 4 years between spring training, the season, maybe not 500, but between spring training and the seasons I played in, my parents never got to watch me. The minor leagues aren't on TV until you're AAA, AA. So it was watching the game on the computer, basically just the box score. So for my dad, he's always been my coach. He was a high school coach, at my school. It was hard. It was hard for me not to have him to watch, So when I got an opportunity to walk on at Georgia, it was no brainer. I wanted to stay close to home, be close to my friends and family, and play for the hometown team.
Yeah.
And be just trying to be in my area. I love Georgia. That's kind of where I want to live forever. So it was a no-brainer for me.
So you go there, you start playing linebacker. You play 2 games as a freshman.
Yeah.
The best is your career high on your Georgia college bio. It says career high.
One tackle.
One tackle. Yes. Louisiana Monroe.
Yeah, first game.
Like, yeah, baby.
My first ever game. Yeah, so first game of 2015, I got 1 play on kickoff cover, and I'm 100% make a tackle on kickoff cover. Got a tackle in the very first game. And
Nice.
that I would have played a lot more of that game, but it got lightninged out in the third quarter. So
Right.
we were beating them pretty good. So I had actually rotated into fullback that game and played 1 series at fullback, and then the game got canceled right at the end of the third. So I missed a whole quarter of potential opportunities there, but yeah, it is what it is.
You could have been Pat Ricard.
That's what I'm saying.
You get that quarter. I mean, what the hell?
There's no telling. I mean, I could be fullback was never something I wanted to do. I did well enough in camp as a linebacker.
Yeah.
I just wasn't fast enough.
Right.
So they thought maybe
You're with Roquan Smith.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
I went into school with Nate Fitzpatrick and Roquan Smith that are both in the NFL and played with Jordan Jenkins and Leonard Floyd and Lorenzo Carter and a lot of first-round talent guys. Right. So it was nowhere near fast enough to play on our defense.
That's like the story of your life. You're like always in the room and you look around and you're like, damn, Betts,
yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Like, and you're just like, look at yourself.
Yeah,
like,
it's like I'm a very athletic man. But, I mean, those guys are top of the. I mean, they're all. We're talking about some of the best at their jobs in the whole world.
They're like aliens.
Yeah, exactly. So just to be around guys like that, I mean, it's great. But yeah, the fullback biz was an interesting one for sure.
But then you go from fullback linebacker, okay, and then you go to. I just feel like there's lots of transitions here.
Yeah, I switched up a lot of different times. So I did linebacker for like 3 weeks in camp my freshman year. Quickly realized I was too slow to do that, so they moved me to fullback. Played fullback essentially all my freshman year. I was mainly like a scout team guy, and then spring of 2016, Kirby came in, played fullback and running back in spring ball, and then played fullback in 2016. Like fullback was my position. I didn't actually play in any of the games, but I played on special teams and stuff like that for a little bit. And then 2017 was when I officially moved to long snapper.
And did you have long snapping? Like, were you practicing long snapping?
Yeah. Then 2016, Kirby let me. He let me do it at certain parts of the practice because we had a guy.
Because why? Like,
well, we had a guy. We always need like extra. In college, you like my senior year, we had like 11 specialists, I think. But so like my sophomore year, we didn't have a lot of guys. So
like you look like a long snapper. Give it a shot.
Well, I did it in 2015. This is how it started. In 2015, first day of practice in camp, Coach Rick was after practice. He came up. He's like, if anybody wants to try long snapping, go see Mike Eckler was our coach at the time. They were like, go see Coach Eckler and try out. And I had told him, like, I did it in high school as a kid. My older brother did it all the way through high school. So I did it. And my dad just made me do it. Being a football coach, he just kind of one of those things you put in your back pocket for a rainy day.
Right.
And so I was like, I can do it. And snapped really well at the tryout. Let me snap a little bit during camp, but nothing during the 2015 season. I didn't snap at all. Because we had 2 full-time, we had 2 long snappers that both played a lot in college that were on the team. So there was no need for me. But then one of the kids graduated, moving into 2016. And so we needed practice long snappers because we do in college, you're doing all kinds of stuff. So I snapped during fall camp 2016. And then our long snapper got hurt in the very first game of our season in 2016. So me and this other kid who was a senior, we were battling it out to kind of take over because the guy Trent Fricks was our starter. He couldn't snap punts because he had torn the ligament in his foot that basically disconnected his big toe from his foot. So it was like
that sounds fun.
So it was like dangling down. So he did the field goal stuff because he couldn't run.
Okay.
But he couldn't do the punt stuff obviously because he couldn't run. And we did the pro style punt back that one year. We did pro style punt. We had to what we do here where the snapper has to block. So I was competing with this guy named Glenn Welch, and I was actually going to be the starter. And Tuesday practice, we were doing punt, and I snapped the ball 3 miles over the punter's head. And that was the end of that. Kirby said, no, you're done. So Glenn ended up snapping the rest of the year, and I just worked on that on the side from doing fullback. He gave me like certain periods during the day where I still ran as a 2 long snapper.
Yep.
And I was the backup field goal snapper. So I was doing a little bit of both. So I was always taking the reps with the 2s, but I was still doing the fullback stuff. And then 2017, I still did fullback stuff like in spring and in fall camp just because the limited number of guys. And then during the season, similar thing. The guy, Trent Fricks, was a senior now. He pulled his hammy in our fall scrimmage. So basically 10 days before the first game, he pulled his hammy. So then I was the only option. We had changed the style of punt. We went to like the traditional college spread punt, so the long snapper doesn't have to block anybody. I was fully confident in that. So he got hurt. I ended up starting the first 3 games as the long snapper for the punt. Again, he did the field goal because he couldn't run. But I did the punt stuff, and then ended up playing 1 play in the national championship game that year, but didn't play anything in between. We had like a fake punt in the national championship that didn't work. That we tried. But then in 2018, Coach Smart brought me into his office for my end of the year meeting or whatever, and he asked me if I wanted to play fullback and long snapper or just long snapper. And I said, Coach, you know me pretty well by now. You know I don't want to play fullback. So let's go ahead and chop it up here, and we'll call it a day. And gave me the nod to be the full-time long snapper in 2018, and that was about the limit of my experience. I only had 17 games played, 14 games as a field goal snapper, 17 as a punt snapper. And here we are.
That's awesome. And so then you have a great, 2018 season for all 14
Played pretty
games.
well, yeah.
Got an invitation to the Senior Bowl, which probably put you on a lot of
that
NFL
helped
radars.
out a lot. Yeah, that getting that invitation for having such limited experience in college. I mean, like I said, I basically only played 1 season at long snapper. That was huge for me.
Right.
Definitely big. Getting me around all the teams, everybody's there. You're playing your team that is coaching you is an NFL team. So I got to work with Coach Hightower for the 49ers. And Jake Bailey was our punter, who's now with the Patriots. And so there was a lot of really talented players. Obviously, the Senior Bowl is a big deal.
Yeah.
So it was a super cool experience.
So then you go undrafted.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure was a shocker.
Well, it actually it actually was kind of a shocker because
you thought you were gonna get drafted.
Yeah, so the Vikings, they actually called me twice on draft day, the 3rd day, and once at the start of the 7th round. And
really?
Their special teams coach Moof, who was
he was
here and he was did some stuff in Miami for a little bit, and they actually told me they were gonna draft me.
Wow.
And right at the start of the 7th round, they had 4 picks in the 7th round.
Oh my gosh! One of these is going to me.
I remember that. That's right.
And they ended up. They said we're going to take a long snapper. We're going to draft you with our last pick of the 7th round.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, that's great because that's a huge deal as a long snapper. Just the difference in signing bonus. I mean, the guy who they ended up drafting, it wasn't me. Austin.
You drafted a different long snapper?
Yeah, so they drafted a long snapper.
Messed up.
Yeah. So that was kind of a heartbreak, but they drafted a long snapper, Austin Cutting, who they cut last year. The difference in he got like a $75,000 or $80,000 signing bonus, and I got $5,000.
That's a lot of money.
That's a big swing. I got a lot for a long snapper undrafted. Most guys get 100, 1,500 or 0.
Right.
Yeah. They're just lucky to be on the team or happy to be on the team. But fortunately, the Saints, I got $15,000 guaranteed with the Saints, so that was kind of cool. But it definitely threw me off because they told me twice that day they were going to draft me.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But everything works out for a reason.
Right. So you go to New Orleans and you're working with Will Lutz, Thomas Morstead, who punted forever. Will Lutz was here, great kicker.
Will's a great dude.
And Zach Wood, who had been with them for a couple seasons.
Yeah, he was 2 years prior to me getting there.
Right.
And now he's in year 5.
Right. And so you didn't beat him out for the long snapping job there.
Yeah.
So you're released by the Saints. And then what's football done? What's going through your head?
The difference when I got cut from football was I believed I could play. Like there was never a doubt in my mind that I was good enough to play in the NFL as a long snapper. I had a really difficult time handling the pressure of the game my first year with the Saints. In practice, I was like a superstar. I mean, I did really, really well in practice. Thought for sure I was going to win the job there. But I couldn't perform. I didn't perform in the games. I was unable to kind of get over that. I had like really bad anxiety for that. And I was so afraid of making a mistake because it's so obvious when the long snapper messes up, because you either snap, like the punter is so far away from everybody else that if it's bad, it's so obvious. It's
magnified, right?
Yeah. And then on the TV, they got, the camera's either right behind the punter or it's right in front of the long snapper, so you can see
you can see it.
It's the most obvious thing, and the same way on field goal. So that was really hard for me to just try to figure out a way to do exactly what I'm doing in practice in the game because like in practice I was never afraid of making a mistake.
Right.
Because it's practice. People make mistakes every single play in practice. That's what it's for. But the game, you got to be perfect. We get so few opportunities that every rep has to be perfect. And so that was very challenging for me, and it showed in my performance. I was had bad attitude, not necessarily a bad attitude, but I was just kind of moping around in the last preseason game because I wasn't snapping the ball well. And Coach Payton got onto me. We kicked a game-winning field goal. It was I think it was like a 20 or 30-yard field goal. It was really short, but we beat the Chargers 17-14, and I had a high snap, but we made the field goal. And instead of, celebrating that we won the game, I wasn't intentionally like walking off the field with my shoulders down, like kind of like poor me. I was like looking at the Jumbotron, trying to see how bad it was. Because like from my angle, it looked really bad, but it's not always that bad from the other angle.
Right.
So I was like trying to look at the Jumbotron, but I was walking off the field, and Coach Payton I just happened to be right in front of him, and he saw me, and I was like on the numbers. And I looked up, like I looked back from the Jumbotron, and he was eye to eye with me. And he was like, he was laying into me. I deserved it. I mean, he was laying into me pretty good.
Yeah.
I was being selfish and, wasn't being celebratory with my teammates because I did poorly.
Right.
They did their job. They picked me up and they made the kick and we won. And I was being a child, so he definitely did the right thing and kind of
a new one.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely got after me. I mean, he was yelling at me using some very choice words, and I'll never forget. He told me I didn't have any moxie, and I was kind of insulted by that. But he was right. I mean, I wasn't. I didn't have. At that point in my career, I just wasn't able to separate that. Like, my performance is not good. We still won, so I'm going to act like an asshole.
All right.
But he definitely got into me, and I deserved it, and definitely helped me. I mean, it definitely helped me out. I mean, I got cut right away after that. I got cut. We flew back from L.A., and we practiced one day, and then we had an off day, and then I got cut on that Wednesday. Wow. And it was like Wednesday or Thursday. It was like the day before they left to go to New York for a game against the Jets. But after that, like I always believed I could play. So I trained for about a month. After that, was like hoping for a call. Did a couple workouts with the Jags, the Falcons, and the Packers. Did some workouts. Nothing really shook, so I had to do something. I had to make some money.
Right.
So I called one of my buddies who's the president of this company in Atlanta. And I mean, I have the credentials to have a real job. I have 2 degrees from Georgia, so I was like, hey, I need
math, right?
Yeah, I have a degree in finance and a degree in mathematics. Right. Yeah. So I was like, hey, I need to make some money. I got to do something besides sit around all day. So he hired me as a financial accountant, and that was horrible. The job, it's like the people were great. My buddy Richard, he's the president of this company called Century Fire Protection, and they're kind of a big time fire protection agency in the United States. They're a really big company, and they have offices all over the world or all over the United States. And So it was kind of a big deal. Like it's not just some like local mom and pop shop that I was just making some money on. It was like kind of a big deal. And he's been I've known him since 2012, and he's always said like, well, like I said, when I was in college, I wasn't trying to play football. Right. I was just trying to get a degree so I can get a job. And the plan was to work for him after I did an internship with them early on, like my junior year in high school. And so when I got done, he said, "Hey, whenever you're ready, you can come work for me whenever you want."
Yeah.
So I took about a month off, and then I started working with him. And the first day I was there, I knew it wasn't for me. Wow. And it wasn't that I couldn't do the job or I didn't like the job, but it was like in my heart, I knew that I was an athlete, and I knew that I could play in the NFL, and that it was really hard for me to focus on doing a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Even though I was only working part-time, I was like training in the mornings, and I was working from like 7 to 1, and then I was coaching high school football at my high school. And so I wasn't like doing a real 9 to 5, but it was just a daily grind. I did it for 9 weeks. I worked 43 days as a financial accountant and promptly retired, hopefully forever. Yeah, retired from that after I got the opportunity to do the XFL gig. So
wow. Right, yeah. So then XFL, right? So then you signed with the Tampa Bay Vipers in 2020, the XFL, and talk about things getting cut short. Yeah. XFL, six games.
5, yeah, we played
5
games.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
all right, so
we had we had the preseason game, so really it was 6. Yeah, right. We had a preseason game.
So then they shut down the XFL, and the Ravens signed you 3 days later.